This PowerPoint presentation is done for partial fulfillment of the Class ADM 507 by Akinkami Kilanko. Tinker vs. Des Moines, a Supreme Court case. Issue: do students have a constitutional right to wear armbands in school as a form of symbolic speech to protest the Vietnam War? John F. Tinker, 15 years old, and Christopher Eckhart, 16 years old, attended high schools in Des Moines, Iowa. Mary Beth Tinker, John's sister, was a 13-year-old student in junior high school. In December 1965, a group comprised of parents and students held a meeting at the Eckhart home. They decided to display their objections to the hostilities in Vietnam and their support for a truce by wearing black armbands during the holiday season and by fasting on December 16th and New Year's Eve. The principals of the Des Moines schools became aware of the plan to wear armbands. Administrators met and adopted a policy that any student wearing an armband to school would be asked to remove it, and if he refused he would be suspended until he returned without the armband. The students were aware of the regulation that the school authorities adopted. The court's 7-2 decision held that the First Amendment applied to public schools, and that administrators would have to demonstrate constitutionally valid The court's 7-2 decision held that the First Amendment applied to public schools, and that administrators would have to demonstrate constitutionally valid reasons for any specific regulation of speech in the classroom. The court observed, "It can hardly be argued that either students or teachers shed their constitutional rights to freedom of speech or expression at the schoolhouse gate." Simply put, this ruling means school officials may not silence student expression just because they dislike it. They must reasonably forecast, based on evidence and not on an undifferentiated fear or apprehension of disturbance, that the student expression would lead to either a substantial disruption of the school environment, or b. an invasion of the rights of others. This particularly is still in effect in our school. The right of the student must be protected except the school board or authority has substantial proof that the student actions will disrupt the school in any way. Justice Abe Fortas delivered the opinion of the 7-2 majority. The Supreme Court held that the armbands represented pure speech that is entirely separate from the actions or conduct of those participating in it. The court also held that the students did not lose their First Amendment rights to freedom of speech when they stepped onto school property. In order to justify the suppression of speech, the school officials must be able to prove that the conduct in question would materially and substantially interfere with the operation of the school. In this case, the school district's actions evidently stemmed from a fear of possible disruption rather than any actual interference. In his concurring opinion, Justice Potter Stewart wrote that children are not necessarily guaranteed the full extent of First Amendment rights. Justice Byron R. White wrote a separate concurring opinion in which he noted that the majority's opinion relies on a distinction between communication through words and communication through action. Justice Hugo L. Black wrote a dissenting opinion in which he argued that the First Amendment does not provide the right to express any opinion at any time. Because the appearance of the armbands distracted students from their work, they detracted from the ability of the school officials to perform their duties, so the school district was well within its rights to discipline the students. In his separate dissent, Justice John M. Harlan argued that school officials should be afforded wide authority to maintain order unless their actions can be proven to stem from a motivation other than a legitimate school interest.